Wizard101 got a lot of spell changes in test realm, from a variety of hot and dot changes to literally any spell that had a hot and dot conditional, as well as we did get some new event spell elements that are going to be tossed in, which I'll be talking about in a separate video. And then as well as in a separate video, I will be talking about the shadow enhanced spells. So like that would be Nested Fear, Iron Sultan, Rasolka. Those spells are back and got changed on their bottom path. So all those spells got changed, as well as fusion spells, which not many people realize that fusion spells also did get changed because of these hot and dot changes. So this video entirely is just strictly hot and dot spell changes, including fusion spells, including Jinns, Onis, Scions, just specifically those. If you're trying to look forward to the shadow enhanced video as well as the event spells, those would be separate videos, separate topics, because I want to dive into other things as well in those videos. But like I said, this one's strictly hot and dot changes. Now KI has been open about this, saying that they want to change them because the fact is they're a little bit too free in some sort of aspects as well. Owl got changed, which I used a lot. Owl and Storm Jinn I used quite a lot because it was so free, so easy to set up, but it's no longer the case. So you'll see all about that in this video, and very straightforward. But if you do enjoy this type of content, remember, leave a like, subscribe, all type of stuff. I appreciate all the people that have been subscribing with all the test run videos and welcoming back to uploading videos, as well as I appreciate everyone that's been joining the Discord. Close to 2,000 members in the Discord, which is a lot of members in the Discord. So there's plenty of guides in there if you are trying to figure out stuff, and there's a lot of nice people in there. So if you need any sort of help or any sort of guide help, plenty of people in there, as well as me. I'm usually chilling in general VC. That's why you always see the little weird intros of just, hey, we're just chilling in call, doing the weirdest things. Also, side note, remember to follow the Twitch channel. I don't really bring it up too much in videos because, you know, this is my YouTube platform, but go out and go check it. It's in the description below. Twitch.tv/TheRealAlmond. Same thing as all my platforms. Definitely go out and check it. I've been appreciating all the people that do stop by the streams and help me out with videos, or just have any questions, just hang out. Appreciate all you guys. But enough about me. Let's talk about all the spell changes. But let's start off with Life School. Let's go over Gnomes. Gnomes got some changes. Top path is remaining the same. Nothing different here because this is the test run build, of course, so you will be seeing test run footage right now. And as well as the bottom path got changed. So now it does 760 at max tier. Currently in game, in live round, it does 785. So a little bit damage loss. There is that, but you can gambit up to 4 hots now on yourself, and in return it'll turn them into 950 hots that last 6 rounds. Remember, you can gambit up to 4 hots. So for, let's just say you have 4 hots that are on you that are about to run out, you can just decide to use the gnomes, do some damage, as well as gambit those hots and turn them now into 950 hots that are lasting 6 rounds. There's some utility behind it. What it was right now in live round is it does 810 for 6 rounds, as well as it can only give you a hot per hot you have up to on you for up to 3. So if you had 3 hots on you, it would give you 3 other hots. You know, kind of straightforward. So there's a lot of hot and dot changes in this fight, or in this patch. I mean, I was about to say fight. In this patch, so be on the lookout for all the stuff I'm gonna be talking about. It's mainly hot and dot stuff. So there is that. Now, Zan the Bandit did get some changes as well. Top path is remaining the same, no changes there, but the path B did get some changes. They also changed the writing a little bit on the card as well, but it's a select target, of course, because you can't use AoEs and advanced content, so it's a select target where you can, you know, split the damage and stuff. But it is less damage now. Before, it used to do 435 at max tier, which is currently tier 4, and then as well as it would give you 70 blades, storm blades specifically, per hot you have on yourself, up to 2. So if you had 2 hots on you, you get 270 blades. That's faint blades for storm. That is insane. So they decided to change it, and now it gambits the hots. Not if you just have the hots on you, now it will take away the hot that is currently on you and turn it into a blade, versus just having the hot on you by default and you'll just stay. Now it just gambits them and you get 60 blades in return. So it is a nerf on the blade, it's a little bit nerf on the damage as well, and now you're gambiting the hot as well. So we'll have to see the use cases on this spell, but still, some changes to Zan the Bandit to look out forward to. Seraph got some changes as well. The top path is still remaining the same, capping out at 400 damage at max tier, but path B did get some changes. Now, path B currently in live realm, it does 325, or it does 540 if you have it hot on yourself. Now that is completely changed. Now what it does 335, as well as it will gambit a hot for 690 life damage. Now, for challenge modes, because we do get challenge mode Mount Olympus and stuff, I know some people have brought up using spells like this to be able to use, which I will be saving for a separate topic, which is, you know, whenever I bring up the challenge mode videos for Aquila. So be on the lookout for this type of stuff. But yeah, it's now just basically you gambit a hot now versus if you just have a hot on yourself. So there is some changes. All the ones that say just to say hey you have a hot on yourself are now just gambits. So there's that to look forward to. Nature's Wrath also got changes. Top path remaining the same. Path B now, what it used to do was 230 damage to 270, as well as give you a 45 life blade and a 45 healing blade if you had a dot on the enemy that you're attacking. Now what it does less damage, so it does 225, but it gambits the dot now, as well as gives you bigger blades. It gives you a 65 life blade as well as a 65 healing blade. Now this is insane. 65 healing blade as well as 65 life blade is kind of insane. You are gambiting the dot, so you do have to keep that in mind when you're using this spell. It's not just gonna, if the enemy has a hot, that doesn't mean you can just use this willy-nilly, because it depends on that dot that you have. If you're willing to waste that dot and convert it into the 65 blade, healing blade and the life blade, go for it. So there's going to be some tech behind this as well. It's not school specific, it's just, it's not chromatic, I mean, it's specifically for life. So there's that. Now Scion of Life also got some changes. Top path remaining the same. Path B, what it does at max tier currently in game is 860 2 bombs that last 5 rounds, or if you have 3 hots on yourself, it does 1400 damage. Now what it does is the bomb is still remaining the same, but what they're doing now is you gambit the hots. No longer is it if you just have hots on you. Now you're removing the 3 hots on yourself for 1605. So before it was doing 1400 just for having hots on yourself, but now if you gambit those hots, which is the new conditional, it is 1605. So I'm not too sure how much I'm going to be using this in advanced content, but PvP players will have their own take on this. But for me, I'm probably never going to use Scion of Life unless there's like some weird boss where it requires you to do it. But nothing that I have to worry about at the moment, but there's Scion of Life. There was a change as well on Toiret. Very minuscule change, but depends on how you look at it, is that Toiret got changed from a 7-pip spell to now a 6-pip spell. Everything else on this spell is exactly the same conditionals, everything like that, but now it's a 6-pip. Now, you might be wondering, does this affect the fusions at all? From what I know, the fusions are remaining untouched, but when it comes to the base spell for Path B, it is now 6 pips and no longer 7 pips. So that was the last change that they made for life. Now let's venture to the storm spells, because obviously storm spells did get changed as well, just specific ones. Stormlord top A is still going to be the same, but Path B did get changes now. Now they changed writing, of course, a little bit on the card, just to make it more fancier and make it look more nicer. But now what it does is it does 825 damage. Before, in Live Realm, it does 780 at max tier. Now there's more damage on the spell, of course, but you are still splitting amongst 2 targets, or more targets, right? However you want to feel it, right? But in Live Realm, it gave you 70% chromatic blades per hot you had on yourself. You weren't gambiting the hots, the hot would just remain on you, and you just get up to 370 blades of your school. So if I was using Stormlord in a strat where I on a balance or something, or I'm at a death, I would still have to have storm stats and everything like that, but it would give me blades of my school back, which was insane to even think about. But now it's completely different. You're still having to have a hot on you, because now what the spell does is it gambits up to 3 hots on yourself, and in return you get 245 blades that are chromatic of your school, of course. Now thinking about this is per gambit. So if you were to gambit 3 hots, you would get 645 blades of your own school. Now just remember, chromatic, so of course you still will need storm stats if you want to use this spell, right? Because you know storm accuracy, there's a storm spell, you still need damage if you want to make sure this does a lot of damage, right? But the blades will be of your school. So if I use this on a death, if I use this on ice, I will get death or ice blades depending on what school I am. So this will see some utility. I'll have to wait and see a little bit more when it comes to advanced content. PvE players, like I said, will have their own takes, or PvP players, sorry, will have their own takes. But when it comes to PvE, advanced content, everything like that, raids, I'll have to see. Time will tell if I actually do end up using this. If anything, people will probably just use this for the split function of this card, not the gambit function of this card. So we'll have to see about that as well. Stormshark did receive some changes. Not much to the Path A. They didn't change anything with Path A for most of these spells. But Path B did get some changes regarding the hot and dot changes. Now in game, currently in Live Realm, it does 400 damage at max tier, and then if you have a hot on yourself, it would just do 625. No gambit required, just a 625. Now what it does lower damage if you do not have a hot on yourself. So now 370 Remember, it was doing 400 before, now it's doing 370. But if you gambit the hot, it's now doing 790 damage. Now, I was using this in Aquila challenge mode. I don't know if that strat is actually going to just stay true to itself. I'm probably going to change it. But just for our first attempt through Aquila challenge mode of Mount Olympus, we were using this just for the for the funsies. Time will tell if we still use this. I think it was just because it was a level 30 challenge mode, so you only allowed to use level 30 spells or no spell that doesn't have a level cap restriction on it. So we'll have to see about this, but I mean, who knows, we might cook up something with Storm Shark as well. Now, one of the last storm spells, or one of the last few that got changed, was Storm Owl. Now, this kind of devastates me a lot, and I was reacting to it on stream when I saw it for the first time. I was like, no, it's just over, man. It is literally just over. So what Path B used to do currently in Live Realm, it does 1400 damage, as well as it would give you 3 pips per hot you had on yourself, up to 4 hots. Now let me just give you some rundown real quick. If you already know, you already know. That was cheese. That was so cheese. All you had to do in advanced content or anything like that that lets you do a hot in that fight, just toss a rebirth on the storm. They're not going to die because they have a rebirth on them, right? As well as just, maybe put a sprite or something if you need to. And you would just spam Storm Owl every single round. And even I did that. I made a strat when, during the rat fight, you just would put a rebirth on the storm and just spam Storm Owl. Because you just get your pips back every time. But that's no longer the case, and the cheese is sadly gone. Now what it does is it does 1310, so less damage, as well as now it's gambiting the hots instead of you just have hots on yourself. So you will be losing those hots once you gambit them away, but you can do it up to 3 times, and each gambit gives you 2 power pips. So there might not be much value here. Maybe if you just want to do owl into owl once, I can see some value. But yeah, you can't just spam owl like 4 times in a row or like 3 times in a row. So that's going to be kind of gone. And it does less damage now. It does 1310. Path A is still going to be really good. I'm hoping that they don't ban it, because I've heard people in the community, like PvP people, will say that they want this banned. It's OP. I don't want this banned. Let me have this for my raid strats. I don't want to use this Path B for raid strats. I don't want to use this for advanced content in general for me, for PvE. Let me keep my Path A. Don't ban it, KI. I don't know if they're going to ban it anytime soon, but just don't ban it. Thank you. But that's the Storm Owl change. One of the other spells that got changed for Storm was Hecate, one of the Salinopolis spells that came out not too long ago. But yeah, that one also got changed. Currently what it is in Live Realm, it still uses 4 pips, it still has the same accuracy and everything like that, but the damage was nerfed. What it does is it will do 570 storm damage, and then put a negative aura if you have a hot on yourself, and that negative aura would be a minus 30% chromatic aura. So that's something you got to be wary of, right? But what they decided to do was they changed it now currently in Test Realm. Test Realm, it's doing 460 damage, so it's doing less damage, right? It's 460 damage. But if you do gambit that hot, that negative aura will now last 6 rounds instead of 4 rounds what it was currently in Live Realm. So depending on how you view it, this might be a good change. But for me, when it comes to advanced content like PvE raids and challenge mode, I don't know how useful this would be, just because the AI is sporadic. We don't know what they have in their deck all the time. Sometimes they might just have aura cheats, and sometimes they might just not even do damage. So realistically, it's not really that too valuable when it comes to that sort of stuff. But for PvP players, it will just depend on what the matchup is. Because realistically, yes, it does last 6 rounds if you are trying to hit multiple rounds. Yes, I get that. But it's at the end of the day, it's an aura. You can easily replace it. So, maybe I'm just like thinking outside the box too much. But we'll have to see what PvP players think of this spell. Thought also got changed for Myth. Path A is still remaining the same, still going to do its damage shenanigans. But Path B did get changed. Now it's no longer if you have a hot on the enemy, now it's gambiting, of course. The damage did get a little bit nerfed. Now it does, well, I guess it depends on how you view it. But they did increase the base hit of it, so now it's doing 55. Before it was doing 50 at tier 3. But the secondary hit is now doing 420. Currently in Live Realm, it does 455, so it depends on how you view it, I guess. But there is a pip reduction on this as well, so this is 6 pips now. No, it's no longer 7 pips. As well as the condition, before on Live Realm, what it would do is if you just have 2 dots on the enemy, sorry. If you have 2 dots on the enemy, you would gain 2 minus 60 shields per dot, up to 2. So if the enemy has 2 dots on them, you would gain 4 minus 60 shields. Now what it does is you would gambit, the dot that's on the enemy, and in return, per dot you clear, or I mean gambit, sorry, per dot you gambit up to 2 times gives you 2 -70 universal shields. So in total, if you gambit 2 dots, you will gain 4 -70 tower shields. Very interesting to see, and as well as pip production as well. No changes, I believe, to the fusion formulas this time around, so there's that for myth. Another mid spell that got changed was Cyclops. Path A is remaining untouched, but Path B did get some changes, as well as some damage nerfs. Currently in live realm, it does 320 damage, as well as it would put 2 30% chromatic traps on the enemy if they have a dot. Now this spell in test realm is doing less damage, it's doing 260 at max tier, and then it's putting, or it's gambiting a dot, and in return, you basically are getting 2 faint traps. That's what I'm just going to say. You get a plus 65% chromatic traps, 2 of them. Now this is really good. This is really good if this is a fight that you can dot and trap. And yeah, this is an insane spell if you think about it, because you can run this on a storm in advanced content for PvE, and you can set up literally a 65 trap for your teammates. So this is kind of busted at the same time. But I'm looking forward to Cyclops. That is one of the few spells I'm really looking forward to. I don't really care about the damage because I'm just using it for the utility. I don't mind spending 3 pips if I have to gambit a dot and get 265 chromatic traps. Of course, if you want to use this on like a myth, you'll gain 265 myth traps. If you want to use this on death, it'll be death traps, etc, etc. That's what that chromatic symbol means. I always have to preface this because a lot of people don't know what that symbol means, so I do have to explain it every single time. Now Hekkan also got some changes. Path A remaining untouched, thankfully, right? Thankfully. But Path B did get some changes. At max tier currently in live realm, what it does is 405 fire damage, and then 250% fire traps if you have a hot. Now this has changed. It's doing less damage. It's still being 4 pips, of course, but it's doing less damage. It's now doing 365 at max tier, and then it's gambiting the hot that you have on yourself for 60% fire traps. Now this is really nice if you want to have fire hitters. If you are rocking a full fire team for some reason, and you want to gambit a hot, assuming this is a fight where you can use a hot as well as put traps, you can put plus 60 fire traps on the enemy, which is insane to even think about. So yeah, that's a thing. That is a thing to look forward to. Another spell did get changed for fire, which is Scion of Fire. Now this hurts players depending on how you view it. It definitely affects raid strats by far, because I know there's people that use this in raid strats. Even I use them in raid strats. But top path is remaining untouched. But path B, what it does in live realm currently, it does 1030 fire damage, which are 2 dots that last 5 rounds. But if the enemy has 3 or more dots on them, it does 600 or 1680 straight flat out damage, right? What it does currently in test realm, it's still remaining the same on top path. All I did was just change the writing a little bit. You're still putting 2 dots on them that add up to 1030, right, for 5 rounds. Or if you gambit them, now you have to gambit them no longer if the enemy just has dots on them. It now gambits it and does 1925. Now you might be wondering, well, how's this a change? Well, in the Azteca raid, as well as some other raid strats, is that you would just put a bunch of dots on the enemy and send 3 fire scions or send 2 fire scions. But now this, since it gambits this, it will remove those 3 dots on the enemy and turn them into damage. So it depends on how you view this. I know it's affecting raid strats entirely. Don't know how much it's going to affect certain challenge build strats, but in reality, this does affect some strats. So we'll have to see what people cook up. Look forward to all the raid strats coming out. But when it comes to PvP players, obviously you'll have your own take about this. But yeah, you can't just brainlessly just send Scion into Scion anymore. You will be gambling them now. So there's that. Rain of Fire was another spell that got changed. Path A is remaining the same as always. Path B, they adjusted the writing, of course. And currently in live realm, what it does 1425, which are 3 dots that last 6 rounds. And it will put an additional 345 dot that lasts 6 rounds, depending on how many hots you have on yourself, up to 4. So basically 3 dots on the enemy, but if you have 4 hots on you, it puts another 4 dots on the enemy. Now what this does is they lower the damage. Now it's doing 1185, 3 dots that last 5 rounds, but now it's gambiting those hots. So every hot you gambit up to 4, it puts a 445 dot on the enemy that lasts 6 rounds. Now I'm not too sure how I feel about this. I mean, time will tell, but I'm not really using Rain of Fire as much anymore due to just because There was strats where we cook up and use Rain of Fire in PvE advanced content stuff, but I know PvP players, there were strats where I've seen people just spam Rain of Fire, Rain of Fire, Rain of Fire. But now it's gambling those hots, so you do have to be wary of that. If not, you're just gonna be sending a Rain of Fire and totally forget that you lost all your hots, right? So we'll see some strategy behind this, but looking forward to it regardless. E3 got some changes. Top path still remaining the same, but path B, what it currently does in live realm, it does 820 damage, and then it puts a 460 dot that lasts 6 rounds, depending on how many dots are on the enemy, up to 3. So if there are 3 dots on the enemy, it will put 3 dots that do 460 overtime for 6 rounds. Now what it does is it still does, well, actually it does a little bit more damage than what I thought it would do. It does 5 extra damage. It does 5 extra damage than what it used to. So at max tier it used to be 820, now it's 825. And now you're gambling the dots that are on the enemy. So per gambit you will gain a 540 dot on the enemy that lasts 6 rounds. So increased dot value, but you do have to keep in mind that you are gambiting them. So this gambit and this all this stuff is for the hots and dots. Is changing a lot of strats. But I'm like I said, I'm all for it. I don't mind it. But some of them I'm very annoyed about. Some of them I'm very annoyed about regardless. Another spell that got a slight change is Raging Bull. Now looking at it, it looks basically the same. The only thing that they realistically changed, in my opinion, is the conditional on path B. Now path B, it's still remaining the same damage, accuracy, pips, and everything like that, but now it's detonating 2 dots for 180% instead of 160 what it is currently in live realm. So I'm not too sure what was the reasoning behind this change. I mean, I'll take it, but 180% is a lot. I mean, you still need a shad, don't get me wrong, you still need a shad, but still, I can still see myself using this at some point. I feel like they're itching closer and closer to doing this 200% for the shad value. I don't know, time will tell, but this is a really good utility spell. Due to the fact is you can split this against many targets, and you can detonate a bunch of dots, and you can see where I'm going with this. Maybe a Scald Incendiate action, but instead of Incendiate, it would be Raging Bull. Just saying, just for the util. But you still are going to be using fire traps, I guess. So, like, if you are putting traps on the enemy, you're still wasting them in favor of the thing. So there is that, regardless. And then lastly, one of the last spells that got changed for fire is Sunbird. Sunbird is still remaining the same top path, but they changed on path B. Path B, what it was before is that, hey, it's going to do 260 damage and then 450 if the enemy has a dot. That's no longer the case now. Now it's doing more damage, 300, but if you do have a dot on the enemy, it gambits it and does 635. That is a lot of damage. I can see myself using this in challenge mode, right, for specifically Mount Olympus and maybe the rematches, but like I said, you still have to put a dot on the enemy, and it just depends on the enemy if you can put a dot on them, if they even allow you to. So it's just little things you have to be wary about when it comes to using Sunbird. So with the hotter dot change, some fusion spells also got changed due to it, because they also have like conditionals where it's like, hey, if you have a hot, or hey, if you have a dot. So let's start off with Myth. Now Myth Weaving into Life got their spell changed. So if we interact with the trainer right here, you can see Swamp Clops. Now originally what it does currently in game, it does 330 life damage, and then it gives you 2 Myth Blades if the enemy has a dot. Now, and those Myth Blades are 30%. Now what it does more damage, so 395, so a good damage increase. And now it gambits the dot for 255% Myth Blades. Very good spell regardless, because, hey, you're increasing the percentage of the blades. It makes sense because you're gambling the dot. It's going to be easy to set up just because, hey, you just need to have a dot on them. It doesn't matter what the dot is. You can just put any dot. So interesting to see with Swamp Clop. Same thing with Fire. Fire got some fusion spells change. So let's start off with Fire into Balance. So if you ever weave into Balance on your Fire, you would get Arid Hound. Now Arid Hound is a rank 4 spell, but what it does currently in Live Realm, it does 690 balance damage, or it will gambit 2 traps and a dot on yourself for 970 balance damage. Now what it does currently in Test Realm, it's doing 710 damage, so slight increase on the damage. And then if you do gambit 2 traps and a hot, you will do 1200 damage, so 1.2k. Very interesting to see. Still 6 pips for doing 1.2k. Yeah, that is kind of insane. Yeah, you still have to do the gambit, of course, right? I mean, how often are you gonna be able to set up the specific gambit, right? Well, just have to see. But still, there's some damage increase on that. And then as well as if you were to weave into Death on your Fire, Sun Vulture also got changed. So currently what it does in game, it does 305 death damage, and then it puts 2 chromatic minus 30 weaknesses if the enemy has a dot. So now what it does more damage, so it does 375 versus the 305 what it is currently in game. And then it gambits a dot and puts 2 minus 50% chromatic weaknesses. Let me quickly go over chromatic again. It depends on the school of the target. So if you're fighting a death, they'll put minus 50 death weaknesses. Same thing with life, etc, etc, right? So it depends on who you're fighting is what's gonna happen, right? Of course, if it's a mob or like a person that's dual schooling, or they have a secondary school, so if it's like a fire ice mob, right, it's not gonna put ice weaknesses, it's gonna put fire, because fire is their primary. So always remember that when it comes to using chromatic spells. And the last fusion spell that got changed with this hotter dot change is from Viv again, but this time it's on a balance, and this one's very interesting to talk about because the damages on this is kind of insane. But they changed the foliage Fargo, or however you want to pronounce this, right? 6 pips. Now currently what it does in live round, it does 615 damage, and then if the enemy has a dot and you have a hot, it will do 850. So there was no gambit on this before, of course. So it's doing 850. But now it does 645 just by itself. And then it will gambit a hot and a dot for 1200 damage. Yeah, that is kind of insane. Insane damage to see, I'm not gonna lie, but I guess time will tell. And this does fall into the below the 50 bracket, so hey, you could technically use this in PvP and just just throw in a freaking link, and you just set it up instantly, so it's not too difficult. Now alongside all those spells that got changed with the hotter dot change, it's also affected some of the Jinns, some of the Onis as well, depending on your school. Now one of the few that did get changed was the Storm one, Thundering Jinn. Currently what Thundering Jinn does in live round, it does 855 damage, and then if you have 3 hots on yourself, it would do 2010 damage. Now what it does 830, so a little bit less damage on the base hit, but if you do have 3 hots on yourself, you will gambit them and you will do 2320 damage. Now the damage increase is good because hey, you are gambiting them. Now for certain strats this will be good, but like I said earlier with the hotter dot change, with the Storm Owl being changed on his path B, so now it gambits the hots versus just if you have hots on yourself you get pips. This also does affect the Jinn because hey, you can't just do Storm Owl into another Storm Owl into a Thundering Jinn. You can't really do that anymore because you're taking away your hots now. Before, the hots would just stay on you and you were able to do that. So this does affect some strats, whether it be for advanced combat stuff. I know one that comes right into my mind right away is the rat challenge mode. Of course, so many other ways you can do that fight, but the way I did it was just Storm Owl, one of the minions, Storm Owl the other minion, and then just Thundering Jinn the boss. It was a very easy strat. It didn't require much skill, but yeah, you can't do that as much because hey, you need hots on yourself constantly for each card now versus just having a rebirth on you and you're good to go. So that does affect the Thundering Jinn stuff, and yeah, it depends on how you view it. But if you are just going to be sending one Jinn theoretically, then this is still a good change because hey, you're doing more damage. Why wouldn't you want that? But if you're trying to do multiple Jinns, it's not that great unless you have someone that can just spam multiple hots on you. So there's that with Thundering Jinn. One of the other spells was for fire. The Inferno Oni did get changed. Now Inferno Oni, what it does currently in game, it does 1100 that are 2 dots and that lasts 5 rounds, and then if you have 3 hots on you, it would be doing 1600. Obviously now that you're gambling them, it's doing less damage on the initial hit. So right now what it does in test round, it does 950 that are 2 dots that last 5 rounds, or if you have 3 hots on you, you can gambit them and you would do 1.8k. I don't know. Of course, this will still affect certain raid strats, especially in Azteca, if people are still using your Inferno Oni in their strats. It does affect that. But if you aren't doing Inferno Oni into an Inferno Oni, it shouldn't be as bad. Because the fact is they did lower the health of Yatasha, so Yatasha does have lower health, so maybe this does compensate for that. I would assume it does, but whenever I venture back into that raid, I will see myself. But still interesting to see regardless, I guess. But yeah, Inferno Oni did get changed for your PvP players and your advanced content players. Now let's venture into the Life School. Life School did get their Jinn as well changed. Currently what it does in live round, it does 920 damage. That are 2 bombs that last 5 rounds. So after 5 rounds, those 2 bombs will detonate, unless of course you detonate them yourself with other spells. Or if you had 3 dots on the enemy, it would do 1.3k. Now what it does 800 that are 2 bombs that last 5 rounds, so a little bit less damage on the bombs. But if you do gambit 3 dots on the enemy, it will do 1.5k. So of course damage increase on the gambit because hey, you are gambiting them now versus just having dots on the enemy. But in return, the initial hit is going to be just lowered because hey, if you don't gambit, of course you're not going to get the increased damage buff, and of course you're doing an actual hit versus having 2 bombs. So the 2 bombs portion of the spell is lowered, but majority of people are even just using the spell for the gambit majority of the time. So that's something to be wary about, but that's for life spell specifically. And then lastly, when it comes to the Jinns and Onis, of course we have Myth because they do use dots in their Oni as well. So currently what it does in live round, it does 990 that are 2 bombs that last 5 rounds. But if the enemy does have 3 dots on them, it will just do a 1400 hit. Pretty straightforward. But now what it does in test round, of course, which will make its way to live round, is it's doing 860 on the bomb, and yes, it's still doing 2 bombs that last 5 rounds, so damage nerf on that side of things. But instead of having just 3 dots on the enemy, now you gambit the 3 dots on the enemy, and in return you're doing 1.6k. So you are getting a slight damage increase, around 220 damage increase. So hey, if you are just doing one Trickster Oni in the majority of your like challenge mode or raid strats, then of course this is fine, it doesn't affect you in any sort of way. But if you are all trying to use it, for example, Yatasha was like a prime example of this, where people would just spam dots on them, spam hots or whatever, and then just use one or the other. But now it actually takes away those dots. So we'll see how people tackle that fight, but it should be pretty straightforward. But yeah, that's the Jinn change, or the Oni change, I mean, for Myth. Hopefully you enjoyed me talking about all the hotter dot changes. I'm recording this last minute due to the fact is like I've been busy with so much recording, and then some things got changed, so I have to like cut out new footage and put new footage in. It happens every time. It's test room, right? I mean, who knows? Some of these changes that I'm talking about right now are probably going to be changed in live room. Maybe the damage increase might be different. And if that does happen, I will cover it on the channel as always. But that is it for me. Hopefully you enjoyed, like I said, everything about the hotter dot changes. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below regarding these hotter dot changes. It's kind of insane to even think about. But yeah, a lot of them got changed. So I'm kind of interested. Some of them I like, some of them I don't like, but hey, that's just how it goes. But that's it for me. Leave a like, subscribe, all type of stuff. Don't forget to join Discord. Close to 2k members on there. Don't forget to subscribe. We're on that grind to 8k. And don't forget to stop by the Twitch channel. I want to hurry up and get to 3k on there as well. But yeah, that is it. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.